It was a hard-fought match and a heartbreaking result, but in the end the Swans lacked just that little bit of composure in the key moments, going down by 2 measly points against the Giants. Some of our lesser lights really stepped up. Josh Kennedy set an unfortunate new record for the Swans as the midfield got belted, and John Longmire was left horrified by some dubious officiating in the last 3 minutes of the game. You're listening to the Swans Blog's SwansCast, the original Sydney Swans fans podcast. My name is Josh, filling in for Justin Mitchell, who's still missing in action, and I'm joined tonight by the angry man himself, Stephen Park. Steve, there was an awful lot to like about that game, but once again our core midfield issues really shone again, didn't they? They really came out at the most inopportune times.
Yes, Josh, I totally agree with you. While I loved the game, I actually said last show that I'd actually really felt more positive about this game than I have all year, about the team selections, about the structure, about how we were going to look, and about the young guys and how they were playing. Sadly, I think our older, more experienced players are the ones that are now letting us down. Kennedy, sadly, was disappointing. Parker wasn't much better, and the list goes on.
Yep, and we'll certainly touch on some of the numbers from those two later on. But, in a nutshell, you can't fault the effort for the most part. First quarter was great, good attacking football through the corridor, moved the ball really well. We actually beat the Giants in contested possessions, even though we were probably still down on clearance numbers for the quarter. But that second quarter, the dominance that GWS had over our usual major ball winners was really disappointing, and they were able to get back into the game and just that first 15 minutes of the second quarter just killed us in the end. I think the game was won and lost in that quarter, and towards the end of the fourth, when we had those opportunities just to sneak by with a win, we just blew a couple of key moments in the game.
Yeah, mainly our kicking was what let us down. Some of our kicking into our forward line wasn't great. We had a few set shots from people who shall remain nameless who didn't kick very straight. We had a dropped mark in the last couple of minutes. That would have been an easy goal, who then turned around 30 seconds later and actually took a beautiful mark but missed the goal. There was a 50-metre penalty, Josh, and I know you're going to talk about this later, but a 50-metre penalty that we should have had, and a free kick that should have come in the last 25 seconds. So it had a bit of everything, this game.
Yep. Now, I'm not usually one to knock the officiating, and certainly I'm not going to say that cost us the game this week, because we had more than enough opportunities before that happened. We really should have been 2 goals up by this stage and trying to extend that lead. But the 50-metre penalty that should have been paid to Menzel and wasn't was just so blatantly obvious that it should have been a 50-metre penalty. I just don't understand how they can overlook that. I understand, depending on where the umpire is, that they may miss what should have been a free kick to Reed for chopping of his left arm. But the Menzel one, there was just no ifs, no buts. That was a 50 every day of the week. And for once, I'm actually going to agree with Kane Corns that if this wasn't the end of the match and the game was on the line, they would have just paid that.
Yep, I agree. And the sad thing is, in the Brisbane game, there was one that he was almost identical. It was probably a little bit earlier in the marking contest that he actually obstructed, and it was given 50. But the difference was, it wasn't 50 metres out from goal, with it being such a close game. So I'm thinking that the umpires put the whistle in the pocket and went, I'm not so sure, I'm not going to call it, I don't want to be the cause of a game, and they ended up causing the game to be lost.
Yep. Yeah, this is true. Some would say, though, there is a little bit of karma because they probably should have pinged Rampy for climbing the goalpost earlier this year, but, And so what goes around obviously does come around eventually, but you still want them to pay the obvious. If they had paid it against Rampy, I wouldn't have thought we'd been ripped off. I would have thought Rampy was a bit of a goose, but I also would have felt that we blew some Mozza opportunities through the game as well. So Rampy's would be the icing on the cake. In this case, not getting the penalty didn't cost us the game because we should have been in front, but they've still got to get this stuff right.
That's exactly right, and I agree. And I hate umpire bashing, and I'm not going to, because I know how hard umpiring football, basketball, and netball is, because I've umpired all 3 sports. It is actually a really, really tough gig to see everything that's going on. And I think it's actually getting tougher in the AFL because the pace is so quick. The guys actually, and the girls as well, aren't actually able to keep up with the speed of the sport. I actually think something needs to change, and I think we need to look at Eddie Maguire's new model. I think it's actually a good one.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't necessarily disagree with what Eddie Maguire's talking about. What I do disagree with is this constant thing the AFL has where we try and introduce NFL-style things into the game. So just the fact that Eddie Maguire mentioned the same black and white striped uniforms the NFL referees have, didn't like it. But I don't mind the concept that he's got that we need to make them more stationary. Then again, I am a bit of a traditionalist. I do sort of like what we've got. But I say bring back the white coats for the goal umpires as well. So, moving on.
Yeah, well, that's right. But just one thing, just before listeners think that we're actually umpiring bashing, I don't actually think those two decisions cost us the game.
No.
I actually believe the Swans cost it themselves with the way they actually rushed the ball and a couple of other incidents in that last quarter and over the whole game, really. So that's not the concern. The concern is they actually played really, really well. The young guys, anyway.
Yep, and we'll start getting on to that just about now, I reckon. So, Isaac Heaney, I think there's still some questions about whether he's injured or not. Certainly in the post-game press conference, one of the reporters sort of pushed Horse a little bit about whether he was playing sore. And Horse, sort of typically Horse kind of dodged the question a little bit, I felt anyway. But he kicked 4 goals. He had a really great last quarter. He took some beautiful contested marks. He's got really strong hands. But I just felt he was too quiet in the first half, and he's probably still lacking some of the consistency we need out of him. We need a little bit more than what we're getting out of him. But having said that, I still think there's an injury issue there. Our boy, Clarkey, putrid first half, fantastic second half, and probably the only reason we were still in contention by the time the fourth quarter come around. His midfield work was very, very good in the second half. And he kicked his first goal for the Swans, and he had 2 more goal assists in that half as well. What did you think of Clarkey's game? Like, you and I have felt for a while that he's actually going to be a decent midfielder, provided he gets to use his hands more than his feet. How do you think Clarkey went?
I actually think he went really, really well. The way he actually played in that second half was outstanding. He kept Lachie Whitfield, I think, to 6 possessions in the second half.
Yeah.
And I think he had 16 or 18 himself for the second half. Now, that's pretty good. The thing that I would say is that if he's given a role and a specific role that he needs to complete, he will do it really well. Also, if he's given the freedom to run and use his pace. Now, the thing that I noticed in the second half about him, Josh, he did not miss a single target.
He was very good. All his turnovers were in the first half.
That's exactly right. He was going at 100% in the second half, which actually made him an elusive weapon. I think he's all about confidence, and I don't think him, Menzel, or Thurlow have been given enough rope this year to actually gain confidence in the side. It's all been about the young guys and what the young guys can do, and they're learning, they're building, blah, 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 blah. But the guys that we've brought in, we haven't given them the confidence to actually develop, and they're always so worried about their position in the team, and I think that goes for James Rose as well, that they're always hesitant.
Yeah, it certainly all makes perfect, reasonable sense. And, and even though some of these guys might be in that sort of early 20s bracket, that 22, 23, 24-ish bracket, their actual experience in senior football is not that much. So, I mean, Ryan Clark's only played 52 games, I think. He played his 50th game while he was with us, and that was only a few weeks ago. So I don't disagree, especially don't disagree with Thurlow. I thought he is still worth persisting with, but his disposal does let him down a little bit. But still, I think his upside is still more than his downside. And speaking
Just before we go on, Josh, I just want to come back because you didn't let me actually have a conversation about Heaney. I just want to have a chat about that. And so just bringing it back a step here, listeners, and I just want to have a conversation about Heaney. I actually don't think he's injured, Josh, at all. This is my personal opinion. I don't think he's injured. And the reason I don't think so, and I've said this to you many times, I actually believe he's only a flash-in-the-pan player. He is brilliant for 5 or 10 minutes a game, but he is dead in the water for the rest. He basically just treads water for, 110 minutes out of 120 minutes of football, and then he will just show these absolute bits of brilliance that actually go, oh yes, Heaney's amazing. Heaney's the gun. Heaney's this. Heaney's that. He's another Jordan De Goey. Jordan De Goey's the exact same type of player. He's brilliant for 10, 15, 20 minutes a game, and then it disappears for the rest. You want someone like Heaney who is going to be there flat out all the time, like Kennedy was 2, 3, 4 years ago. He was just constant. No matter what stage of the game, he was always in and under. He was always doing the things that were needed. That's where Heaney needs to get to.
I tell you what, I'd have a Jordan De Goey though. I guess probably the difference between Heaney and Jordan De Goey is that arguably Jordan De Goey's got a better forward line and a relatively more functional midfield at the moment around him. So maybe the answer lies somewhere halfway between sort of what we're saying, but certainly I feel like we only get one strong quarter out of him at the moment, and then sort of maybe 2 wishy-washy quarters, and then one where he's just completely absent. So, but his upside is so high, we really should be expecting a lot more out of him in the future.
That's right, and I totally agree with you there. His upside is phenomenal, but the problem is we're just not seeing enough of it, and it's not consistent enough to actually go, yes, this guy is going to be one of the greats.
Yep, fair enough. Tommy Papley, 6 touches for 2 goals in the opening minutes of the game. Started off super strong, played a lot of midfield minutes, faded out by the end, but I think he had 2 or 3 more goal assists, so not an outstanding game, but he was reasonably solid. Now, I'm going to let you talk about the GOAT, Jordan Dawson, his movement into defence. You have to give Longmire credit for that. That's not one I thought was going to happen.
Mate, the greatest of all teammates, Jordan Dawson, the legend, the myth, the mastery, the man. He is now officially, I'm going to say it right now, he is now officially my favourite Sydney Swans player. He has taken over from the greats. He's taken over from all of them. He's taken over from Parker, Kennedy, Hewitt. He is the man. He is going to lead our club into the future. Silky smooth skills. Can play at either end. He can play in the midfield. He can play on the wing. His left foot is booming. He's got a 60-metre kick on him, Josh. I cannot believe it.
It's a cannon, isn't it? It's an absolute cannon.
He is the man that you want the ball in the hands of. He can play at either end. He kicks beautifully. And the masterstroke of putting him in defence, we knew our defence was going to be weak, so what does Horse do? He puts him down there. Our midfield was struggling, so what did Horse do? He put him in the midfield. Our forward line was struggling, so what did he do? He moved him up there for a couple of minutes. He plays everywhere on the ground. If you actually look at his heat map, it actually doesn't have a set area because he just moves around so much.
He, the coaching staff have a lot of trust in his ability already. A lot of trust in his ability. He really is a jack of all trades, and he's instead of being master of nothing, he's very good at being a jack of all trades. I'd love to see what this guy looks like with 100 games.
Yep, I agree. Hayden McLean. Josh, what did you think?
Look, for a guy who's played 4 games and went up against Mumford, I actually thought he acquitted himself quite well. Yeah, he got belted in the hit-outs, and that was always going to happen, but he gave us a bit around the ground, and it turns out he's our leading clearance winner with 7. Team high, and that's going to feed into a little bit about what we're going to talk about later, but certainly I've been impressed with him in the seniors. I didn't think he was too much chop in the kneeful, and you got to wonder what's going to happen with Shannon Knoll. Michael Knoll.
Sorry. Michael Shannon Knoll is actually going to be delisted again, I reckon, or he will be traded to Essendon. I actually think...
You reckon we took him just to trade him to Essendon?
Possibly.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go into many more detail about that, but this is my opinion on McLean. I actually think he could be the next Shane Mumford. He's a big, bullocking body. He's actually come very similar to Mumford, because remember when Mumford was at the Cats, he wasn't getting a game. He was a rookie-listed player when we took him. Look what he turned into. He's a similar type of player. Yeah, he's a mammoth of a man. He's going to get bigger and stronger. And the thing that I really liked about him is his 4th quarter was really, really good. Yeah. When we were actually trying to build and trying to get back in front, he was the man who was taking on the responsibility. He was the one in the midfield who was taking on the responsibility. He isn't the crummer. He isn't the guy that should be getting the clearances, but he was doing the work.
Yep. Yep, interesting player. I think I actually wonder if the mould for what constitutes a ruckman is changing, and maybe in some ways Mumford might have been the prototype for like the latest ruckman, but certainly McLean is the closest thing to. I don't want to say a Grundy type ruckman because he's not, but certainly he's in that sort of athletic rucking ability. He can win a hard ball. He's got a decent kick. He can take a contested mark. There's a lot of ruckmen can't actually do that kind of stuff. Not in the way these guys are going to do. And for a guy who's in his fourth game, he's doing very well.
Agreed. And the thing is, ruckmen take a long time to develop. I actually think he's better than Naismith is now, because I actually don't rate Naismith. Naismith's a great tap ruckman, but he can't do anything around the ground. That's right. He cannot do anything.
Yep.
Anyway, Callum Mills, mate, I think he's back.
So do I. We've never really played him as a one-on-one defender like we had to this week. And I thought he went up against Himmelberg, he went up against Finlayson, he gave up a bit of height and weight to both. He had a couple of very big, strong one-on-one moments in the fourth quarter, which kept us in the game. I thought he was exceptional, and he looked like he rose to... We talked earlier this week about the lack of leadership in our backline. Well, I thought he rose to that occasion this week. I thought he rose to the level he needed to take on that leadership role, and I thought he was great.
Yeah, I actually thought his first half was very poor, to be honest, but his second half was brilliant. That last quarter, Callum Mills was what held the back line together.
Absolutely.
Callum Mills was the person who was directing, he was the person who was controlling, and he was the person who was saving their backside. The other person I thought was really good in our back line, who's probably never played in the back 50 before, was Robbie Fox. I thought he played quite well.
Yeah, he looked all right, didn't he? Tommy McCartan had a couple of big moments down there. He comes up in our social question later. I can't pick what he's going to be. He can read the ball. He's really good at clunking his marks. I'm just not sure his set shot's that great. That's the only thing that stops him from being a lock as a forward for me, but we'll talk about that later. Onto the bad bit, though, our midfield woes. There's nothing new here, is there?
No, there isn't. And sadly, I think it's only going to get worse. We were belted in the clearances and contested possessions again.
Yeah.
It's a real concern.
We were up on contested possessions by 7 at quarter time, and then we were down by a couple at half time. We were well down by 3/4 time, and then sort of scrapped it back in the last 10 or 15 minutes of the game. But in the crucial patches, and especially in the second quarter, we were demolished. Absolutely demolished.
But Josh, how many games this year, in the first 15 or 20 minutes of the first quarter, have we taken a reasonable lead and then just squandered it? I think it's up to 13 games.
Okay.
13 games where we have actually been ahead by more than 10 points in the first quarter.
Yep.
Now, you think about that. That's a serious thing that we are actually going out. Now, how many times have we kicked, 30 or 40 points in the first quarter and then come out in the second and third and kick nothing? And that all comes down to our midfield.
Yeah, or this week where we put on 10 points but gave up like 5 goals or something over that second quarter.
That's right.
A lot. Our midfield, our established ball winners in our midfield just aren't getting it done week in, week out this year. And certainly the 3 blokes we're about to talk about now had really average games. So I said earlier, I'll start off with Kennedy. I said earlier in the introduction that he set, a record for the Swans that is not a good record. And that is for the first time in his career, or in his Sydney Swans career, Josh Kennedy had 0 clearances.
Yeah. Now, Josh, tell me who was our leading clearance getter?
The fourth gamer ruckman.
Now, what does that tell you? Now, what does that tell you, Josh?
Tells me that Kennedy's too slow. He can't get his hands on the ball.
That's right. How many times did he get knocked over in that game? I rewatched that game last night when I went to bed.
Heaps.
7 times he got knocked over when he was near or around the ball. That doesn't normally happen with Josh Kennedy.
No.
George Hewitt, 0 clearances.
Yep.
Luke Parker, how many do you have?
5.
And that's not good enough either.
No, so 5 clearances between our three established, experienced midfielders. And just the numbers, all 3 of them couldn't get their hands on the ball very often. So Kennedy's 21 touches with 7 contested, 0 clearances. His saving grace, though, was that he did lay 10 tackles, though, which was a pretty solid effort.
The question I ask about that, though, was that he laying the 10 tackles because he was second to the ball all the time.
Oh, of course he was. Yeah, and they were probably a stationary target when he got there, too.
Yeah.
Parker, 22 touches, 10 contested, 5 clearances, 6 tackles. Parker was okay. He didn't wake up until the second half, though. Hewitt, 17 touches, 6 contested, 0 clearances, 4 tackles. But he did have a tagging role at various stages in it. But we can't win games when these three guys are pulling numbers like this, though. I mean, we all know Kennedy's probably coming towards the end, but Luke Parker, he's in the prime.
That's right. And it's not so much about the possessions. I don't care how many possessions they are getting. If they are not getting clearances and they're playing in the midfield, why have them there? They are no good to us if we cannot win the contested ball around the clearances. We need to be winning it. And you can't say that's because we're not winning the ruck taps, because all you need to do is change what you're doing and just ruck to the opposition ruckman. It's simple. We've done it for years.
Yeah, that's right. It's certainly 2016 where our midfield dominated everything. We still lost most hitouts.
That's exactly
we really
right.
did.
I actually think, and I'm going to say this again, and I said it the other day, Kennedy needs to either be shipped out or he needs to become a defensive forward.
Yeah.
He can tackle, and he's got a reasonable body strength to actually do it. The good thing about him as a defensive forward would be he can tackle. The bad thing will be he's slow. He's slower than Kieran Jack, and I actually think Kieran Jack probably looked a little better than him around the ball than this week. And I didn't rate Kieran Jack's game at all. Anyway, Josh, what are some of the stats from this game? Have you got one?
Yep, got plenty, and most of them are negative. So we got belted in clearances, so less 19 clearances, and that was negative 11 centre clearances, negative 8 stoppage clearances. We had one more mark inside 50. We had 9 less contested possessions by the end of the game. We were up by 7 at quarter time. We were equal at 65 each at half time, and then GWS got ahead until we pulled it back just towards the end of the fourth quarter. Negative 30 hit-outs, which had potential to be a heck of a lot more than that. So Reid and McLean did a decent job in the ruck, I think, up against Mumford. Thought they were reasonable. And that was the only thing Reid gave us as well, was 10 hit-outs. So I don't think he gave us anything else around the ground. And he would have looked like an absolute hero if they paid that chop of the arm, though, because he would have kicked the winning goal. And we had 4 less tackles.
Yeah, that's right. The thing is, my prediction wasn't right because Dawson Simpson didn't play. But imagine if Dawson Simpson had played and Jeremy Cameron had played, if they hadn't been laid out.
Oh, we'd probably be looking at a substantial loss, I think.
We would have, so my prediction of breaking the record went out the window when Dawson Simpson went down. But the -4 tackles worries me too, because a lot of the time, you should win the tackles when you're second to the ball.
Yeah.
So that does concern me.
Well, Steve, we might take a bit of a break, and then we'll come back with the Swans Blog Player of the Year votes.
Sounds good to me, Josh.
Welcome back, Steve. Voting time, Swans Blog Player of the Year votes.
Now, Josh, I just have to say, there's been a lot of conjecture this week about this because you and I haven't seen eye to eye, but none of the other Swans Blog cast and crew have seen eye to eye on this either.
No, and I think if you look at the various comments on the Facebook threads we have out there, I don't think the Sydney Swans fan base as a whole could come up with the same 1 through 5 votes, but I reckon there's about 7 or 8 guys you could chuck a blanket over them, and they'll be about right. And there's not much separating them because none of them played a complete game.
No, that's right. I don't believe any of them did, except for number 2 in our list today. I thought he was pretty good, and I'm going to explain why. But we'll see who that is shortly.
We will. So starting off on 1 vote, and this might be his first vote for the year, and that is Mr. Ryan Clark. Putrid 6-touch first half, followed by just a fairly magnificent second half. He was the difference in our midfield after half-time. And while we talk about how Heaney and potentially Reid, if he had been paid the mark, would have got us over the line, none of that would matter if this bloke wasn't there. So he finished up by having a 6-touch first half. He finished up with 26 disposals, 9 contested possessions at 77%, 24 pressure acts, 5 clearances, 4 tackles, and kicked his first goal in the red and white.
That's right, Josh. And as you know, Clark was actually my 5 votes this week because I got rid of his first half. His second half was the best I have seen from a Sydney Swans footballer this year. He was brilliant in that second half.
He was great. And unfortunately, he's not going to get the applause he deserves because of some of the games he turned in earlier this year.
That's right. But he's building, and that's all we can ask.
Absolutely.
The second vote, or the 2 vote, goes to Ollie Florent. Now, I'm going to explain. I actually think he deserves more than the 2 votes, and I'm happy for him to sit at the 2, but he deserves more. Because I would say he was the only 4-quarter player that we actually had this week.
Yeah.
He went all day. He found a lot of the pill. His disposals let him down a tad at different times, but he provided a lot of run through the middle, and he was arguably our best player in the first half. He was probably the only really standout player we had in the first half, but he continued right throughout the game. And if you want a 4-quarter effort, he is the person to look at. 28 disposals, 7 contested at 57%, which is where he let himself down a bit, 4 clearances, 6 inside 50s, and 1 goal assist. But the fact that he actually contributed for the 4 quarters when no one else did, I say he's the 5 votes for this week.
Well, he's definitely worth votes, that's for sure. Just before we go on to the next few blokes, just the fact that Ryan Clark and Ollie Florent have more clearances than Parker, Kennedy, and Hewitt combined. Just think about that. You wouldn't have picked that before the game.
And the funny thing was, Clark and Florent both played on the wing most of the day.
Yeah.
So what is that saying about our midfield?
That they got absolutely pummeled. 3 votes. Mr. Tom Papley set the tone very early with a scintillating start. 2 goals from his first 6 touches. Played a lot of midfield minutes. Finished up with 17 disposals, 3 contested at 70%. He had 9 marks, 4 tackles and 2 goals, but he really should have had 3. Pretty solid game from Paps, and even though he probably didn't have the impact that we would have liked after half-time, his work rate was still really good, so 3 votes for the Paps.
Josh, I thought he was good, but this is my concern about Papley. 6 disposals in the first 3 minutes and 26 seconds, including 2 goals, and then 11 disposals for the next 117 minutes. That's a bit of a worry. I actually thought his first 5 minutes was brilliant, and Jonathan Brown actually locked him down and said, there's the guy who's going to win the Brett Kirk medal after the first 4 minutes. Yep. Then we didn't hear his name again for a long time. So, 3 votes probably about where he sits. I don't think he was as good as what he could have been.
No, that's true. I thought some of our dodgy inside 50s let him down, though. He really should have had another... He probably should have finished up with 4 goals. Ronk probably pinched a mark that was meant for Papley. Clarkey actually had absolutely butchered an inside 50 and turned the ball over to when it really should have been an easy uncontested mark to Papley. So we probably did let him down a little bit. But yeah, no, he did fade out. There's no question about that.
Yeah. Moving on to number 4.
Oh, here we go.
It is, Josh, the GOAT. The greatest of all teammates. It is Mr. Dawson, the man himself. Silky slick first half, playing Ramps' role. Faded a bit in the second half, proving again he has a lethal left foot when he kicked that goal. But the problem is, he is the man, and that's where we need to be wary, because he may start to get a tag sooner or later. He may end up being one of these players where they just shove someone on him to cut him out of the game. 20 disposals, 6 contested at 75%, 8 intercept possessions, 7 rebound 50s, 6 marks, 4 tackles, and a cracking goal from 55 metres. You cannot ask for something better than the GOAT himself.
Nope. No, you can't. Has he played 20 games yet?
I think he'd be just getting up to it, wouldn't he?
Be pretty
He'd
close.
Be 18 or 19.
He's a pretty solid player.
Yeah.
I like him.
Arguably our best player at the moment, or our most consistent.
Yep. Yeah, I don't disagree with you there at all. But coming in with the 5 votes, the flash in the pan man, the amazing shock of blonde hair, and that is 5 votes for Mr. Isaac Heaney. Almost dragged us over the line in the last 1/8 of the game. Finished up with 18 disposals, 12 contested at 61%, 2 clearances, 3 1%ers, 20 pressure acts, 7 marks, 3 of those contested, 4 goals, but let's face it, he really should have had 6 goals. I think you could take all 5 of those guys, Steve, and you could reorder them any one way, and I think you'd still be pretty close to the mark. There's not much separating those 5 blokes.
No, I agree. And Heaney did play well. He was the only one who got in the coaches' votes this week.
What did he end up with?
I think he ended up with 4.
Okay.
So he was good, but he's still just that flash-in-the-pan player. But honourable mentions too, Callum Mills, Hayden McLean. I'm not so sure about this one, but Parker, Rowbottom, Aaliyah, and I'd actually say an honourable mention to Dan Menzel, because I thought he played really well on the forward line when the ball wasn't coming in very well.
Yep. No, all good points. Social question time. This one is about one Mr. Tom McCartan, the better McCartan, the real McCartan. I just want McCartan that plays like real McCartan. Look, Tom McCartan shows a lot for a guy, let's face it, he's still a 19-year-old kid, right? He's just finished high school. And yet here we are playing him as a key position defender or a key position forward. And I think, given his experience base, I think he's acquitting himself quite well. So we asked people this week, what is his best position? Is he a forward or is he a defender? And I got to say that looking at the responses we got, it's more or less a 50-50 mix on where people think he fits on the field.
Yeah, I agree, and I totally agree with the people. Craig Blair, hi Craig out there. He is fantastic. Would love to see him develop, become more physically imposing and a bit quicker, and he could play anywhere on the ground. He has fantastic courage and endeavour. Back, front, or in the guts. He is more than a little promising. Agreed, Craig. Well said.
Yep, definitely more than a little promising. Next is Mr. Dan John. The answer is that he and Sam Reid act as swingmen, rotating between the two positions and create some unpredictability in attack whilst giving Melican some cover. With Naismith looking like he will be ready for a big season next year, Sinclair is going forward with Buddy, McCartan and Reid can rotate in defence, with Reid and Sinclair to help Naismith in the ruck. Yeah, I actually think the ruck thing needs to get simplified a little bit more. I don't see too many teams having success running 2 ruckmen. And to be honest, the way Reid's been going the last few weeks, like he had a couple of really good games this year, but if you had a fit Blakey, Buddy, McCartan, and Sinclair in the forward line, mate, Reid might be hard up actually getting a game if all those guys are fit and firing. So, but some good points there, Dan.
Yep, I agree with you, Dan. I think Reid would actually be better playing at centre half back, and I think you could have McCartan playing back there with him.
Yeah.
Anyway, on to Mark Mazzol. The way he hits the ball in the air and on the ground, he definitely should play mainly forward. The option to swing him back is very handy string to his bow. Linchpin of our future forward line. I agree with you, Mark, but I actually think he'll end up playing more backline than he will forward over his career.
Yep, all good points. Stephen Trelaw, who's one of our contributors, he says he's a serviceable defender, but I hope he becomes a key forward. Him and Blakey would work well together in 5 years, plus he's too good to be just a swingman. I just hope his work now in defence doesn't hinder his development. And that's an interesting point, because that was always one of the complaints about Sam Reid, was that how much of his time was wasted being a swingman instead of just developing as a stay-at-home forward.
Yeah, that's right, and that's what worries me too. I think you need to pick a position and stick to it for quite a while.
Yeah.
Beck Humphrey, Reg 2.0, much better defender. He isn't a great set shot for goal, kind of needed skill if you are going to play forward. However, he can take a mark, but Well said. He can take a mark.
He's got good mitts.
Yes.
I understand what Beck means about being maybe a little bit suspect about his set shot action, though. But he's still a young punk. He's got room to improve.
That's right.
Now, the next two comments we've got are actually one after the other. So, Mark Walsh, he says, he has been brilliant as a hit-up half-forward making a contest. Forwards are hard to find. Defenders can be manufactured. Don't ruin his progress by using him as a band-aid fix in defence. There's that same thing like we just talked about with Reedy. And Craig Dunstan then said, not a band-aid, a permanent fixture. Games are won by teams who control the half-back line. Just look at Rance at Richmond. Blakey can control the forward line. Don't undersell the importance of a good centre half-back. Again, 50-50 mix. It'll be interesting to see where Mr. McCartan ends up.
I actually really like Craig's point. I actually think that McCartan could become another Alex Rance because he reads the play so well.
He does.
And he can kick and hit a target. He just has the yips in front of the goals.
He's certainly got the mitts for it, and he can certainly read the play. Personally, I wouldn't be too upset with either option. If he wants to be the next Reg Grundy, well, I wouldn't be opposed to having another Reg Grundy, that's for sure.
That's true. Reg 2.0, here you come.
Reg 2.0. We might have another break, and then we'll come back with my favourite segment.
Hayden, McLean, how much does that tight 2-point loss to the Giants hurt?
Yeah, it was a bit of a game. We played good three-quarter footy, not four quarters, and we haven't been able to put four-quarter effort, for the last couple of months. So, that's what lost it that second quarter, and it was just a bit too much to get back. But we gave it our best right to the end.
Isaac Kearney kicked a goal with 2 minutes to go to put you guys only 3 points behind. Give us an insight into just how intense it was out there over the last couple of minutes.
Yeah, it was definitely a hot footy. The contest was red hot, and we held it in our front half, and we had opportunities, we just didn't capitalise on them. And that last minute or so we had our opportunities, just didn't finish.
When Heaney put that goal through with 2 minutes to go to really close the gap, how much belief did you guys have that you'd be able to continue on to surge home and grab the win?
Yeah, definitely that goal gave us a lot of confidence, and we know we kept going, we could get over the top of them. You could tell that they were going to be tired, and we were real confident with our ball movement. It was just that goal electrified us a bit more, but just obviously wasn't a bit too much.
How did you find coming up against the big colossus in Shane Mumford in the ruck today?
Yeah, it was a good battle all day. He won a few, I won a few, so it was just a good contest, and obviously he's a big guy, but it was just to bring that back to him.
On your debut just a couple of weeks ago, you faced Aaron Sandilands. Today you faced big Shane Mumford. You've been thrown into the deep end earlier in your career. Yeah,
it's just a challenge really. I'm getting a game, and it's a challenge that I'm loving, and bring that competitiveness to the team. Obviously they're big challenges, but definitely don't shy away from them.
You were only picked up as a rookie late in the pre-season. Now you've basically become an AFL mainstay late in the season. Looking back on your rapid rise in season 2019, it must be pretty surreal.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, first feels like I just got here, 3-4 months ago, but then, the club's helped me a lot with my rehab, getting back to where I am really now, and got to thank them all. And obviously, it's a surreal moment to be out playing there, to live the dream, but just got to keep going.
And we're back. And that was one Mr. Hayden McLean. Now, Steve, heroes and villains time, mate. And funnily enough, Hayden McLean is my hero for the week, Steve.
Good choice.
Hayden McLean's my hero. I thought that we've asked a lot over him over the last few weeks. He debuted against Aaron Sandilands of all bloody ruckman, the man mountain himself. Shane Mumford is no shrinking violet. I didn't genuinely fear for his safety, but I thought that Hayden being the young bloke and Mumford being, Mumford, was just as likely to come out and absolutely pole drive this kid. But, Hayden stood his own, and I was really impressed with what he gave us, and I was impressed with his work around the ground, and I was very impressed that he was our leading clearance winner. So, Hayden McLean, you're my hero.
Fair enough, and that's a great choice, Josh. I really like him. My hero for this week is actually, probably realistically, I say Jordan Dawson is my favourite player, but in all honesty, this man is my favourite player, and that's why he's my hero this week. It is the man who's actually just joined us, Dan Menzel. He had 14 possessions this week, but it wasn't about his possessions. 9 kicks, 5 handballs, 6 marks, 3 of those contested. The main thing for me was his in and under work when he actually hustled for the ball. Did you see, Josh, a couple of times when he actually went to the ground, grabbed up the ball and got the hands out so quickly and precisely to our teammates? It was just beautiful to watch. People keep saying, oh, he doesn't tackle. He doesn't tackle. He's no good. He doesn't tackle. He's not there to tackle. He's there for his silky smooth skills. You put him in the forward line, Jordan Dawson off the half back line. We've got a beautifully matched pair at either end. And that's why Dan Menzel is my hero.
Yep, I liked his game. I definitely liked his game. I thought he does it. He really should be used to teach some of our young blokes how to put bodywork in before trying to take a mark. Who was the bloke he out-muscled for his goal? He gave up a lot of height and weight to him.
I can't remember who it was now.
Good mark.
Yeah, it was. It was a beautiful mark. Tom Papley kicked that to him. I can't remember, but he should have actually had a couple of others. There was a couple right on the goal line where he'd snavelled the ball and he just kicked it, but one hit the post and then one went through for a point.
Yeah.
He could have ended up with 3 or 4 for the night, because what did he kick? Yeah, I think he ended up kicking 1 goal 4 or 1 goal 3.
Oh,
1 goal 3.
1 goal something. He had a shot from just on his range, which dropped a little bit short, and then he almost snared that fantastic little soccer kick out of the air, which just, I think that was the one that hit the post. He was on track for a very good night for us, but it just quite didn't come off in the end.
Yeah, that's right. And I reckon if he's given a consistent run next year, he actually has a decent preseason, he could be a massive bonus for us.
Yep. Yeah, he's still got a lot of potential, doesn't he?
He does. He needs a lot of upside. And I think people need to get over the fact that he doesn't tackle. He does tackle. He's just not strong at it.
No.
Fine. Let it go. You don't need him to tackle.
Steve, your villain?
St Kilda Football Club.
Grant Thomas agrees.
Yes. Not because of who they are, but because of who they let win. How in the world could the St Kilda Football Club let the Adelaide Crows and Don Pike win? While I was happy that Eddie Betts and Bryce Gibbs were back in the team, the fact that they could win and they let Tex Walker have a field day really, really upsets me. Now, I had a lot of high hopes for St Kilda. I understand you were undermanned because of Gastro. I understand that you went up there and played them, but that is no excuse ever to lose to the Adelaide Crows. I hate you, Adelaide.
I feel like your little soapbox is going to come out in another segment later on this podcast to have a bit of a rant about another club, Steve. But my villain is actually a football club, and that is Geelong. Look, Geelong, they started off the year amazing. It really was a case of there was Geelong daylight than everybody else in the competition. And then, just like Geelong does, they went away on the bye and they drank some of their own bathwater, and now they're back and they're just playing like Geelong does in the second half of the year, and they've gone from being a lock for a grand final spot to really, really people wondering whether they're going to have any impact in September whatsoever. That midfield should be playing a darn sight lot better than it is. Geelong, you're my villain.
Yep, I totally agree. Geelong have fallen in a massive slump, and I hope they can get out of it, because I do not want West Coast Eagles winning the grand final.
Steve, I think it's your favourite segment, Clown Files time.
Clown Files! Woohoo!
Clowns, first one off the rank. Umpires, again. Don't normally bag umpires, but this week was particularly putrid. Some of these things, they're not 50-50s at all. They're just wrong. So the Dan Menzel, no 50-metre mark, no 50-metre penalty. That's a clown moment. Reedy should have been paid a mark, and if it wasn't, that was the chop of the arms. Clown moment. Nat Fyfe sliding into Patrick Dangerfield's legs. There was no ambiguity on that whatsoever. That is a penalty. Not paid, clown moment. If anyone saw that moment in the Pies vs Suns game where the ball went like a foot over the boundary line and the Pies player dragged it back in with his hand and it came back in field and then got snapped for a goal, Absolute clown moment. And there was a boundary umpire within about 4 metres of that when it happened too. Not 50-50s, inexcusable. AFL need to sort this stuff out. Clowns, whole lot of them.
Agreed, Josh. They are becoming worse, and I don't know why.
Shocking.
Second clown moment. GWS Giants. At what stage did you think it was okay to charge non-Giants members $60 for a general admission ticket? How can you feasibly make people pay that? I understand that every ground has the right to charge whatever they want for general admission. I know that for a fact. I go to Blundstone Arena and I pay $37.50 for a general admission ticket. I go to Aurora Stadium, UTAS Stadium, or whatever it's called now, I pay $31. I go to Marvel Stadium, I pay $27.50. I go to the MCG, I pay $25.50. But $60, come on, Giants, that's ridiculous. You are a bunch of clowns.
Yep. Well said.
Josh, really, seriously, how can you charge someone $60 for a general admission ticket?
I've got a theory. You want to hear it?
What's your theory?
This is a little bit Area 51. A 3-game membership with the GWS Giants is $95 a year. My guess is what they're doing is that they say, well, if we make the GA entry stupid expensive, people will buy a 3-game membership instead, which boosts their numbers a bit. They'll use one of those entries to come and see the Derby, and then they'll use the other 2 entries just to come and see the Giants play when the Swans are out of town. That's my gut feeling. It's about inflating their membership numbers. But certainly $60 is ridiculous. We saw people making comments that they paid $75 for a general admin ticket, and there's still 10,000 empty seats in the stadium. So it's a pretty sad state of affairs.
Well, St Kilda do that too. At I think it was around 6 this year, they were advertising their 9-game membership. How much do you think for, Josh?
Oh, no idea. $200.
Try $65.
How does that work? Oh,
9-game membership, $65. What were they trying to do? They were trying to get members to come in so they actually increase their numbers. Smart move, really. How much money do the AFL and these clubs make off tickets? It must be ridiculous amounts.
Well, maybe they lose money on membership and then they charge you $25 for a cold meat pie to make the money back at the stadium. But certainly, I mean, even this week there was an article in the I know we're getting off track here, but there was an article this week in the Herald Scum newspaper, and it was saying that the Giants, the money they take in from memberships and merchandise sales is still less than the money that they spend on membership services.
Are you kidding me?
No, it was like a couple $100,000 difference in it.
That's ridiculous, isn't it?
Third clown for the night, and that is talk about players with terrible set shots. Look, Cale Hooker's not a forward. Cale Hooker's a defender, right? And Essendon keep trying to push him down the ground and hoping he can, have a Cale Hooker moment and make a miracle occur. But he had a set shot from a toughish angle, and he put it out on the full. But he missed by 15 metres out on the full. It was a shocking attempt at goal. It really was. And it's a real blight on the game how bad some of the set shot kicking has become. And I don't want to clown Cale Hooker because I rate him as a player, but certainly kicking in general just needs to be clowned. So set shot kicking, you're clowned.
Fair enough. And I think that comes up a bit further in our show as well, Josh. So That's interesting. Mine, I'm going to put 2 in 1 here because we've already covered one. The Geelong Football Club since the bye. You're a clown. Yep. Seriously.
Yep.
Moving on.
Hold on. Do I need a violin?
You probably need a violin for that.
Cool. Drum roll.
Simon Goodwin, the Melbourne coach. Honestly, Simon, let me give you a bit of advice. You are an ex-Adelaide footballer. You are, or were, a good assistant coach. You are not a donkey's roar of being a decent AFL coach. You have no structure. You have no plans. You have no identity. You have one of, if not the best list in the AFL currently. You have 11, count it, not 1, not 2, not 3, but 11 first-round draft picks. You have Max Gawn, the greatest ruckman of the past decade. You have Clayton Oliver, the ball-winning machine. You have Angus Brayshaw, who's arguably one of, if not the best inside mid going in the league. He finished third in the Brownlow last year and wasn't even invited, Simon. Yet, you cannot win a game. You have Christian Salem, Jake Melksham, Nathan Jones, Christian Petrarca, Jake Lever, Jack Viney, and the list goes on. You have Jordan Lewis, who has your senior figure. You have the McDonald boys. You have Braden Pruce, who is a man mountain, and I would love to have him at the Swans being in our ruck position. Yet, you can and will not win. The day you are sacked is the day Melbourne will actually start to turn it around. The quicker you are gone, the better off the Melbourne Football Club will be. Simon Goodwin, you are a clown, sir.
I've known that's been coming all week.
And just to finish on that, I didn't even mention Stephen May, who's not currently in the team, and you let one of the best full forwards go without even a fight. Simon Goodwin, you're not just a clown, you're an idiot.
Oh, dear. Do you reckon his whole plan is just, last year it was basically Brayshaw and Oliver win the ball, Max Gawn is awesome, and Tom McDonald's kick a goal. And that was basically their game plan for all of last year. Yeah,
that's exactly right. And the problem was, now, they have no structure and no identity. Their defence is a shambles. Their midfield is basically getting killed. And every team that they come up against, or every team that's got any semblance of idea, actually knows how to break them down. They put a bit of physical pressure on their midfield and on Max Gawn, and they're just done. Simon Goodwin has no idea and has no other plans. He really reminds me of John Longmire. The only reason they finished in the top 4 last year is actually because they were still riding on the coattails of Paul Roos. And that's it. Simple.
Yep. Yeah, thankfully, Horse has found a new ability to try and reinvent himself, but it seems like Goodwin can't do it.
That's right. And don't get me wrong, I actually think John Longmire is doing a terrific job this year. I was all for getting rid of Horse, but the last 6 to 8 weeks, he's actually turned it around, and I actually have high hopes, and I actually think he could end up being a great coach again.
Well, Steve, I don't think I've heard you say anything like that before.
No, and I haven't. I still remember the day I told him that I actually wasn't too impressed with his footballing prowess, to say the least. And
on that controversial statement, we'll move on to the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yes, I think we better.
Did you really?
Yeah. Yes, I did.
The good. Ryan Clark, second half. Thought he was amazing. Hope we see more of it. You know, for all his faults, there's one thing you can say is that whether he messes up his disposals or not, he still gives effort across the whole game. Just his ball use lets him down at times. But my good for the week is Ryan Clark's second half.
I'm not going to say much on mine, Josh, because he's been mentioned quite a few times in this podcast. Hayden McLean, the next Shane Mumford. I wish I could get his name spelt right, though.
Whoever wrote the run sheet's an idiot. My bad, Josh Kennedy, and I don't mean Josh Kennedy isn't that. Josh Kennedy's bad. But just, he's starting to look like he's more. I know we talked about this last week, but he's sort of starting to fall from his lofty standards, and it makes me a sad panda. And being sad about Josh Kennedy is my bad.
My bad, Josh, actually follows straight on from yours, and it's our experienced leaders at the club. Kennedy, Jack, Parker, Hewitt, Lloyd is the other one. I just don't know what's going on. Lloyd gets lots of possessions, doesn't do anything with it. Kennedy looks all out of sorts, and I think he needs to change his role. Parker's in and out of games. Hewitt is not looking brilliant. Experienced leaders, pick up your game.
Yeah. Just wonder whether there's a little bit of Q in the rack going on now.
Could possibly be, but I think a couple of them are just starting to look slow.
Yeah. My ugly, Essendon. I've been hot and cold on Essendon all year. Well, I've never been hot. I've only ever been sort of lukewarm on them. But this week proved it to me. They're just a bunch of downhill skis most of the time. They rely on individual brilliance to get through a game. You know, McDonald tipping Woody will crop up, kick 5 goals, or do something ridiculous. But when he's missing, they lose. You know, Zach Clark is bloody terrible as a ruckman, which is why I sort of wonder whether they're going to trade Michael Knoll to him, and we just keep playing Hayden McLean. They talk big. They started talking about finals, and they got belted by Port on their home deck. So Essendon's ugly, and I don't like them. And Ian Jarvie, mate, if you're listening to this, the Dons suck, okay? Get a real team.
Josh, flat track bullies is what I'll say about Essendon. It's as simple as that.
Sorry, Ian Jarvie's a good mate of mine, but Jarves, they suck, mate. Get a new team.
They do. All right. My ugly, and it's something that you've already touched on, Josh, but it's set shots on goal, not just for us, but for every single club in the AFL. God damn, it is not that hard to kick a goal. You look, you set up, you look at someone in the crowd, you pinpoint them, just like you would if you were on the field, Josh. You pinpoint them and you go, right, I am going to hit that person on the beak. Simple as that. It's almost impossible to miss from 10 metres out directly in front, but it's happened so far this year, according to Dermot Brereton, 24 times.
Yeah.
10 metres out directly in front, and it has happened 24 times. Now, I know this is becoming a regular occurrence each week, but seriously, how bad is the set shot kicking these days?
Dreadful. Just dreadful.
I just don't get it. And I have a theory, Josh, and I'll finish off on this point. My theory is they run so much that when they actually go to kick goals now, that the lactic acid in their legs makes it hard for them to kick. But that is no excuse in the first 5 or 10 minutes of a game. So I don't know.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to have much rhyme or reason, does it, as to why they're kicking, why they're so wayward in front of the sticks?
No, it's ridiculous, and it's everybody. It's not just 1 or 2 people, with the exception of Jordan Dawson, who's 13 goals won this year.
Absolutely. And on that goatish note, we might call it a night. Steve, mate, thanks again.
Thanks, Josh. Always love to be on with you.
Yep. Maybe one of these days we'll find out what box we stuffed Justin in, and maybe he'll come back and run his own podcast again.
Yeah, possibly. You never know.
And on that note, if you want to get a hold of us, you'll find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram under the Swans Blog, SwansCast, and SwansCast Extra. We will be back at some stage this week to preview the round 21 game against whoever it is who I've forgotten. Until next time.
Port Adelaide, Josh.
Port Adelaide. Till next time then, Steve. Go Swans.
Go Swans. Good luck.